We have made it to the offseason, approaching year number 4 in the Chicago White Sox franchise here on MLB The Show 25. And I'm really excited about this offseason because for the first time in this series, not only is there light at the end of the tunnel, but we're getting pretty close to the light. I do not think this team is far away from being a playoff contender in the American League. And really, for the first time, we're going to look to be aggressive. We're going to look to really make some moves here. And with us being now a full season gone from the Reinsdorf cell, the wheel is going to look a lot different with some new scenarios. We're going to spin it 3 times instead of twice. And I'm excited to see what challenges we will have to follow here in the offseason as we get set for 2028. The team really has been solid over the last 3 months. We've played pretty much 500 ball since July, finishing the regular season with a record of 74-88, which is an 11-win increase from last year. Theoretically, if we do that again, we would win 85 games in 2028, which would be a massive step in the right direction, but we've got to have a good offseason first in order to get the job done. Over the past couple of days, I've been working on the rosters here. I've been adjusting ratings for probably well over 500 players across the majors and minors for all 30 teams. So you're going to see some new ratings pretty soon. As we quickly dive into our season, it's clear the strength of the team this year is the offense. 8th in runs, 11th in batting average, 8th in home runs. We were towards the middle in terms of walks and strikeouts. This team really did not have a weakness at the plate, and we've got a lot of guys in this lineup who I think we can build around for years to come. The ratings shown here, by the way, are not the accurate ones. This was recorded before I made the adjustments. So, for example, I think Luis Robert is a 93, not a 92. Kyle Teel, I think, is an 81 rather than an 80. But if we look at the guys here at the top, obviously another great year for Lou Bob. Kyle Teel really emerged onto the scene when he was healthy. Douglas Cato played over 100 games. That's a big positive. Edgar Quero expected to win the Rookie of the Year and grab the Silver Slugger at the catcher position. What a season and what a finish. Homers in his last 2 games, 32 overall. The first catcher to hit 30 home runs in a season since Mike Piazza over 30 years ago. That's pretty good company. We got flashes from other players. Oswaldo Escobedo improved down the stretch. Colson Montgomery had his best year. Of course, we had guys struggle, though. Brian Ramos was really disappointing, and we're going to look to right the ship with him going into year 4. Luis Robert's 7.1 WAR was 4th in the American League. I think he's been top 3 in the AL all 3 seasons of the series. I mean, the guy's just one of the best players in baseball at this point, and we're lucky that he's going to be on our team for at least another 2 years, hopefully more than that. After Edgar Quero, Emmanuel Rivera finished in 3rd, which is kind of odd because his offense was pretty average, much like last year, and his defense, I would argue, got a little bit worse. From there, as we look at the guys towards the bottom, I think the most interesting one has to be Brian Ramos, an everyday starter who we were forced to hit high in the order per his demands. His WAR was negative after 2 pretty strong seasons in a row to start the series. Ramos still finished with 18 home runs, but he barely hit above 200. The guy could not get on base. Then we get to the pitching, which was the weakness of the team and the area that I think we're really going to focus on addressing in the offseason. 22nd in ERA, runs and earned runs. 29th in home runs allowed. That's got to be better. Tied for 22nd in walks, but we were 4th in strikeouts. Hagen Smith had one of the higher strikeout rates among starters, and then Tony Santillan out of the bullpen had over 110, finishing in 3rd on the team in punch-outs. Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith were the only 2 guys who were in the rotation the entire year. Both of them showed a lot of promise. Drew Thorpe was great when he was healthy, 2.41 ERA, 1.17 whip. Now this year I thought the gap between Schultz and Smith and then Drew Thorpe would be a lot closer, but it actually grew apart, which speaks to how well Drew Thorpe has pitched, at least when he was healthy, for the 70% of the year that we had access to him. Along with the starting pitching, we're definitely going to look to improve the bullpen as well. It was better than it's been in the past. That doesn't really say much, though. The bullpen still is not great. I am excited to add Ezra Valenzuela, our 2nd-round pick. As I've said earlier, I think he has the chance to be an all-star as soon as next year. I think Jairo Iriarte, moving him to a reliever full-time, will help the bullpen, even though I still have a little hope that he can be a starter. I feel like it's kind of blind optimism, though, on my part at this point. So we're definitely going to look to add another veteran starter. We're definitely going to look to add at least 1, maybe multiple veteran relievers. I want to make this rotation and bullpen a lot more consistent than it's been in the past, and I think by adding multiple impact players, we can do that. And if this pitching rotation can be even average, there's no reason to think this team cannot make a run for the playoffs. So now I have fully updated the ratings. Drew Thorpe is an 87 with A potential. There weren't that many groundbreaking changes on our roster, I will say. I feel like it was more so the teams across the league where I was more aggressive, whether it was positively or negatively. Brian Ramos, his ratings took a dip, though, especially against lefties. He's pretty much unplayable against lefties, which isn't ideal because both Colson Montgomery and Kyle Teal kind of are as well. A lot of changes to the top prospect list. We currently have 6 in the top 100, although that's going to change once this year's draft picks enter the fold. We'll probably still have 6 anyway, with Barney Wagner and Ezra Valenzuela in, and then probably the last 2 guys out. The international free agents have changed a lot. Lucas Campos was definitely the best of the international free agents we've seen so far. Zahir Hope is not one of the international free agents, but I wanted to show him because his rating improved a lot being stuck in the minors with the Dodgers. I wouldn't be surprised if they use him often, though, in the playoffs. A guy the ratings adjustment system has really benefited is Willie Vaccaro, former first-rounder of the Cardinals, a guy we looked at back in Season 1. His initial ratings and potential were underwhelming, but the guy's played really well for St. Louis, and now he's a top 100 prospect, and he looks like a real piece for that team's future. This is where we get to some of the international free agents who struggled this year, which includes our very own Arsene De La Fontaine, who's still a top 100 prospect for now, but I think once this year's draft picks enter the list, he'll probably be on the outside looking in. Augustin Ramos, another guy who really benefited from my rating system. He was unbelievable in Double-A. He only played like 50 games, but he hit like 380. I wasn't really sure what to do with him. I feel like he should be higher because he played so well, but he only played like 50 games. It is kind of a small sample, even though he was absolutely awesome. Let's go through the standings across the entire major leagues. The Tampa Bay Rays had to be the biggest surprise in the American League. Not only do they win the division, but they get the number 1 seed at 95 and 67. The Red Sox and Orioles also make the playoffs. Is this the year that Baltimore can get over the hump? The Guardians and the Tigers were 2 of the best teams in the second half of the season, and I think Cleveland is as big of a threat as anyone in the AL to win the World Series. The Tigers, meanwhile, just missed on a playoff spot. They should have been better than 500 the first half of the year. The Rangers win the West. The Mariners make it in as a wild card spot. I think Texas is probably the favorite to go to the World Series. I mean, they've made it in both seasons of the series in 3 of the last 4 years. And then you have the Angels, 52 and 110. This team is just sad. I mean, I don't know what else there is to say about it. I felt depressed making their ratings changes. Even Russell Russo, the generational prospect, wasn't very good this year. His potential went down quite a bit. But the AL is so competitive. I mean, you have an 88-win team in Detroit missing out. The Yankees are really talented. They missed out. And after them, the next best team, believe it or not, was actually us at 74 and 88. As for the National League, the Philadelphia Phillies hold off Miami to win the division. The Marlins, though, 94 and 68, the number 1 wild card. What a year it has been for the Marlins, the biggest surprise in all of baseball, largely because of John Means, who's now an 88 overall with A potential. I mean, he has single-handedly resurrected this team and led them to adding Yordan Alvarez, Josh Hader, and Isaac Paredes at the trade deadline. They're a real threat to make a run in the postseason with their outstanding pitching. The Mets end up making the playoffs with 88 wins, while the Braves, of course, start their rebuild. The reigning champion Brewers are the sleeping giant, 92 and 70. They win the Central. And then the Dodgers, the best team in baseball, 105 wins, while the Diamondbacks at 92 and 70 make it in as well. Arizona's a big sleeper for me. If they make a big run, if they make it to the World Series, I would not be surprised at all. I think that team is absolutely fantastic. As for the league leaders, Alex Bregman won the batting title in the American League, although the Red Sox will not have him in the postseason. And then Xavier Edwards, his second batting title in the last 3 years. Wyatt Langford and Trey Turner, and I guess Vladimir Guerrero are your hit kings. Nico Horner led the AL in at-bats. He hit 20 home runs this year after just 1 last year. I criticized the Royals for letting go of Jonathan India and replacing him with Nico Horner, but it worked out for them. Horner was better than India, who of course ended up ironically with the Cubs. Trey Turner, meanwhile, leads the NL in at-bats. Wyatt Langford, 62 doubles, head and shoulders ahead of everybody else in Major League Baseball, as Bryce Terang is the triples leader, while Parker Meadows holds the crown in the American League. Luis Robert, 4th in the AL in homers. Edgar Quero in 10th. Shout out Jackson Holliday. I was surprised to see he hit 35. His power went up quite a bit. Aaron Judge leads the AL, though, while Shohei Ohtani with 51 leads the NL. Lou Bob was one of 4 players in the AL with over 100 RBIs. Corey Seager led the league, while Shohei Ohtani comfortably led the NL. Wyatt Langford and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. lead the way in terms of runs. Nico Horner and Corbin Carroll lead the way in terms of stolen bases. Bryce Terang not too far behind. He had a great year for Milwaukee. Corbin Carroll did not. He has struggled with Arizona, but he can clearly run. Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Yordan Alvarez all lead in walks. Rough year for Soto otherwise. He only hit 247. He has not hit at least 300 since 2021, and his contact ratings have taken a bit of a tumble. Alex Bregman leads in on-base percentage, while Mookie Betts leads in the NL. Lou Bob, 3rd in slugging, but it is Alex Bregman again with Shohei Ohtani. Bregman and Aaron Judge over 1,000 OPS in the AL, while Shohei Ohtani is over 1,000 in the NL. Bregman leads the AL in WAR, which is wild because he has not played since like August 13th. He tore his Achilles, though, which is a huge deal. He's out for the playoffs. He's going to miss probably the first half of next year, but he still led the AL in WAR. Mookie Betts, meanwhile, over 10 in the National League, by far the most valuable player this year by WAR. Kyle Bradish, Zach Eflin, Brian Wu lead the AL in wins, while Justin Steele is 20 in the NL. Brian Wu, the best record in baseball, 17-4, the only player in the AL with an ERA below 2. His whip was also below 1. What a year for Brian Wu, while John Means leads the NL in terms of the least amount of losses. Cade Smith, 52 saves. Brusdar Graterol, 61. Holy cow. Brian Wu, the ERA king in the AL, while it's John Means in the National League. Sandy Alcantara only allowed 12 home runs. John Means only allowed 9. Logan Gilbert had 5 shutouts. Next highest was 2. That's insane. You'll never guess who led the league in complete games this year when we get to that. Kyle Bradish led the AL in strikeouts. Hagen Smith was in 2nd, while Spencer Strider led the NL. Logan Gilbert, 6 complete games. Jose Barrios is the only one who had at least 3. Gilbert led the way in terms of innings, while in the NL it was Justin Steele. We've given John Means all the attention, and rightfully so, but Justin Steele was just as good, and he was elite last year. Nearly 10 WAR over the last 2 years. He's going to make a lot of money. Cody Bradford is the best in terms of walks in the AL. Chris Paddock, meanwhile, in the NL. Brian Wu, the only player in the AL with a whip below 1. In the NL, it's Justin Steele. As for pitching WAR, it's Sandy Alcantara in the AL. Justin Steele over 1.2 compared to 2nd place in the NL. Justin Steele and John Means is a generational Cy Young race. There you go. Edgar Quero does win the AL Rookie of the Year. No major surprise, but it is official. He barely edges out Munetaka Murakami and Ricky Carlton, all of whom would have won easily in the National League. He also takes home a Silver Slugger as well. And I believe this means we would get a prospect promotion incentive selection, which is the 31st pick in the draft. That's a big deal, along with bragging rights and a nice award on Edgar Quero's resume. Actually, he gets 2 to add to his resume with the Silver Slugger. So let's look at the MVPs. Gunnar Henderson, 3-peats. What a career he has built for himself. Only 25 years old. He already has a wild resume. He might make $1 billion when he's a free agent after next year. Rafael Devers and Corey Seager behind him. Shohei Ohtani, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and Mookie Betts. Dodger in the NL. At first, I was surprised it wasn't Mookie Betts, but Shohei had 50 home runs and was in the Cy Young race, so I get it. Cy Young in the AL is Kyle Bradish. He had a really good year, but how does both Logan Gilbert and Brian Wu not make the list? Justin Steele wins into the NL. John Means should have been at minimum 2nd. I would have voted him first because he was so valuable. Steele I get. Ohtani and Framber Valdez I do not get. Bregman and Edwards win the batting titles. Cade Smith and Brusdar Graterol win the reliever of the years. Shout out Amir Garrett with a career year coming in 2nd. Edgar Quero obviously wins the Rookie of the Year. Although Munetaka Murakami's numbers were better, he missed the first 2 months of the year. That's the reason why he didn't win. And then Elijah Dunham in the NL. The NL Rookie of the Year race has sucked every year. In the AL, it's been loaded every year. Alex Bregman wins the Hank Aaron despite missing the last quarter of the year. Shohei Ohtani takes it in the NL. As for us, Emmanuel Rivera, 3rd for Gold Glove. Edgar Quero finally has Adley Rutschman dethroned as a Silver Slugger. And Luis Robert wins a Silver Slugger in the outfield along with Aaron Judge and Wilyer Abreu in Kansas City. So before we get to the big league playoffs, let's talk about the AA playoffs. We won our first game 2-0. Boyce Merrifield 7 scoreless. And then Wilfred Veras was our only offense with a 2-run shot. Here in the second game, a lot of offense, 8-7. Martin Burt has homered twice. Damian Lunam has homered twice. If you thought you weren't getting any gameplay today, you thought wrong. Against Bobby Walsh, belted up the middle on the first pitch. Play is made, throw in time here in the Southern League Championship game. We're looking to seal the deal in 2 as it remains 8-7 with Xavier Warren up for the Pensacola Blue Wahoos. Joel Hurtado pitching as Warren is behind in the count 0-2 with the game on the line. Hit well over to short. Ryan Burrows makes the play. Throw to Burt. In time, it's over! The Birmingham Barons have won the AA Southern League, and for the first time in this series, we have a champion in terms of one of our minor league affiliates. The AAA team nearly did it this season. I thought they were going to with how dominant they were throughout the year, but it's the AA team who gets the job done. Great seeing our first-round draft pick, Martin Burt, in the biggest game of his career, homering twice. He was not the only standout, though. Damian Lunam, 4 hits, 4 RBIs, 2 home runs. He didn't even play in the first game, which is crazy. Pensacola's offense was really good in this second game, but they could not keep up with Lunam and Burt. AA Southern League champions. It helps that we won the Southern League North in both the first half and the second half of the year to give ourselves a first-round bye. And with that, we move to the Major League playoffs. Will we have a new champion here in season number 3? In the first round, we've got Boston and Baltimore, Cleveland and Seattle, Miami versus Arizona, and the reigning champion Brewers against the Mets. Had some very interesting results early. The Baltimore Orioles lose in 3 games to the Boston Red Sox, and we've got to have some discussions here about this Orioles team. Is their championship window fully closed? Adley Rutschman's a free agent this year. Gunnar Henderson's a free agent next year. In the decisive Game 3, a 2-run homer in the bottom of the 8th by Roman Anthony propels Boston to the win over the Orioles. As for the other series, Seattle sweeps Cleveland. I thought the Guardians were going to be a threat in the playoffs, but clearly not. The Marlins sweep Arizona, so Miami gets the Dodgers. The Brewers will get Philadelphia. In the DS, the top-seeded Rays lose to the Red Sox. The Rangers need 5 to get by Seattle. The Marlins get the Dodgers a run for their money, but LA holds on in Game 5, 7-4, despite a good fight from the Fish. Thomas White really struggles with homers for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Freddie Freeman. The Dodgers will play against Philadelphia, who beats the reigning champion Brewers in 4, so we will have a new World Series winner. It'll be the Rangers and the Dodgers in the World Series. Texas is back for the 3rd straight year and the 4th time in the last 5 years. They beat Boston in 7 games, winning the last 2 at home, 7-5 in Game 6. Roman Anthony homers again. He had a great postseason. But Corey Seager homers twice, and Jock Peterson goes deep as well. Game 7 was a blowout, 7-1. The Red Sox offense did not show up. Akil Baddoo, 2 hits, a homer, drove in 3, while Kumar Rocker gets the win. Akil Baddoo has been the Rangers' best player in the postseason. I mean, how cool is that? The guy who was on our team for 4 months has been raking. In 10 postseason games so far with the Rangers, he's hitting .333. He's homered 5 times. He's driven in 12 runs, OPS above 1,000. He's been awesome. The Dodgers only needed 5 to beat Philadelphia, a lot less competitive than the series against the Marlins, winning the decisive Game 5, 8-3. O'Neal Cruz, Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, and Brandon Lau all homer. Tyler Glasnow, 7 innings of 1-run ball in the win. The Dodgers are the obvious favorite to win the whole thing. Even though this Rangers team has so much experience, their 4th time in the World Series in the last 5 years, the Dodgers are too good. Shohei is hitting .436 with 5 home runs and a bazillion RBIs so far. So who will win the 2027 World Series? The top-ranked Dodgers or the 12th-ranked Texas Rangers? That feels low. This Dodgers team is unbelievable, but this Rangers team has the experience. They've been there, done that. They've won the World Series together. They've lost it together. As the Dodgers win Game 1, Shohei Ohtani. And then in Game 2, Roki Sasaki with a shutout. The Dodgers would lose Game 3, though. Big recovery for the Rangers. But the Dodgers take Game 4. They're up 3-1. And the Dodgers win it in 5. Another great start for Roki Sasaki. He goes 7 innings, allowing 2. Akil Baddoo did what he could. He had 2 hits, but Tyler Mahle really sucked. Baddoo does win the postseason MVP officially. He had a very good stretch in the World Series, homering twice. He had 6 hits over the last 3 games, nearly a 1,400 OPS over his last 10 games. Ohtani wins it in the NL, while Will Smith, the Fresh Prince, wins the World Series MVP. It was a great postseason for Baddoo, but they didn't really use Cionel Perez, who also came in that deal. Struggled against Seattle, did pitch a scoreless inning, though, against the Dodgers, but it's not enough to win the World Series. And with that, we now officially begin the offseason. The Dodgers, your world champions. The Rangers lose the World Series now 2 years in a row. No one from our organization retires. Across the league, Tomoyuki Sugano, maybe the most notable name, at least on a roster. Former White Sox Omar Narvaez, Seth Lugo, Chris Martin was really good back in year 1. And then in free agency, former White Sox Jacob Amaya, Brian Anderson, John Birdie, Mark Canha, Andrew Chafin, Kevin Gossman, former All-Star, Vaughn Grissom, what a fall from grace for him, Robbie Grossman, Andrew Heaney, Jason Hayward, Jose Iglesias, Robbie Ray, the former Cy Young winner, calls it a career. Anthony Rendon, maybe the best day of his life. Hunter Renfroe, Anthony Rizzo, the other Will Smith, the pitcher, Drew Smyly, Giancarlo Stanton, the former MVP. Marcus Stroman retires as well. No Hall of Famers. I mean, Stanton's peak, he was different, but I don't know if he has the longevity to make it into the Hall of Fame, and there's nobody else there who really is a case at all. So now that brings us here to the good stuff, the offseason, where we hopefully will make this roster noticeably better. With the Ishbia family running the show, we're not afraid to spend a little money. The contract extensions for Luis Robert and Kyle Teal officially kick in, but outside of those two and Drew Thorpe, we have no other long-term financial commitments. The draft picks are now here as well. Barney Wagner and Ezra Valenzuela, along with the other fine folks who we ended up with. So now it's time for the most important part of the day, our 3 wheel spins. In the past, we've done 2, but with the Reinsdorf family no longer in charge, I wanted to add to the challenge and give us a 3rd wheel spin. With Jerry no longer in charge, I've made a lot of changes to the wheel. Some returning tiles, some new ones. Just because Jerry is gone does not mean it's going to be any easier with the wheel. Now, there's going to be less spins in terms of like being cheap, but I don't think the wheel got much easier with Jerry Reinsdorf gone. A lot of these tiles are not good. As always, if you have any ideas for the offseason wheel, feel free to include them in the comments, and I might look to add them in year number 4. Our spins include the fixes in. We've had that one before. Big bank. We have to extend a player for a lot more money than they would be asking for. Injury bug. Top 5 player misses part of the year. Trade a top 5 player for a big leaguer. Average age of the roster must be younger. Improve the team ranking last year by at least 3. I think our ranking was like 24th, so we'd have to push it back up. Reinsdorf reconcile. The Reinsdorf family regains control as full-time owners. Please no. Something's in the water. Everyone gets -5 contact but +5 power. One pitcher gets Tommy John. That would not be good. Be ranked top 5 in one of the team categories. Increase the budget by at least 15%. Sign a top 10 free agent. 35% of the projected roster must be new. The opposite of the fix is in. We get the better result for doing the lottery twice. Add 3 All-Stars from last year. Top 5 player on the team requests to trade. Sell the team. Again, everyone gets +5 contact, -5 power. Decrease the budget by 15%, and all trades must be approved by ownership. All right, here we go. Are you guys ready? The first of 3 spins on the off-season wheel for year number 3. Just please do not give us Jerry Reinsdorf, and please don't give us Tommy John. All right. Ooh. Oh, no, that is not good. The injury bug. A top 5 player on the roster misses the first half of next year. That certainly is not what we wanted to start with. One of our best players is going to have to miss the start of the year through July. All right, spin number 2. Hopefully this one ends up being a little bit better, please. We land on the fix is in. Do the MLB draft lottery twice. Pick the better result. So we're going to spin the draft lottery twice. Wherever we get the better pick is the one that we will choose. And then the last spin. Ooh, that's an interesting one. Pressure mounting. We have to trade a top 5 prospect in the organization for a proven big league contributor. So in order to see our top 5 prospects, I had to do a quick sim through the offseason just so we could go into spring training and see our list. So the top 5 prospects in the organization are Valenzuela, Rod White, Sal Casey, Barney Wagner, and Martin Bird. So we have to trade one of these 5 guys away for a big league player. The key is that we do get to pick. It's not random. We will get to choose which prospect that we would trade away. As for the top 5 player gets injured, I think what we're going to do is we're not going to figure out who that player is today, but instead, we're going to determine who will get injured in the next episode. Once we know what our new roster looks like, we see who the new 5 best players are. That one will be random. We'll put the 5 best players on a wheel. Each of them have a 20% chance, and whoever it lands on will be out until July. And then obviously the lottery, we've gone through that before. You guys probably kind of know how that goes. If not, we'll talk about it once we get closer to the lottery. So with the 3 wheel spins, none of them told us how we're allowed to spend our money. So that means we can be as aggressive or as conservative as we wish. We have one exclusive right free agent, that is John Curtis, who of course we were basically given for free from the Diamondbacks. I was going to trade 2 prospects for Dominic Canzone, and then Arizona said, hey, you can have Curtis too if you want, which I said yes. And he was fairly solid for us over the last couple of months. We're not going to re-sign him now, but I'm not opposed to it once we get to the open market. As for the staff, we have vacancies with the hitting coach and the farm director. I think our hitting coach has done a terrific job building some of these young players, but I think he's ready to become a manager somewhere. So I think we're going to look for someone new, and we're going to get someone young. Ishan Srivastava, -1 bunting, -2 drag bunt. I don't really care about that, to be completely honest. I like the +2 in power. I like the +1 in clutch. Those are 2 important stats for me. 3 years, $3.9 million will be the offer. As for the farm director, we're going to look at Marco Medrano. -3 blocking is not ideal for the catchers, but catcher's the only position where that's really all that important. +1 arm accuracy, +3 power, +1 velocity. I think power is a hard skill to develop. Not everybody is as lucky as Edgar Quero, going from 4 home runs in AAA to 32 the next year in the big leagues. That was a 1 in a million type of scenario. I don't think we're going to get that again. Now we're going to simulate into the good stuff, specifically free agency. We've made some marginal moves in free agency throughout this series, but now that the Ishbia family has been in control for over a year, I think we can look to spend a little bit. Srivastava has accepted the offer as our hitting coach, and then just a couple of days later, Medrano signs on to be the farm director. So the staff is set and ready to rock and roll for season number 4. We're obviously not going to give John Curtis the qualifying offer. I mean, there's a reason why Arizona gave him to us for free. And now we make it to day 1 of free agency, and it is supposed to be a very strong class of players, particularly in terms of starting pitching and catchers. Those are the 2 best positions. We've also got to give arbitration or renew the contracts for pretty much everybody on the team, other than Lou Bob, Drew Thorpe, Kyle Teal, and our most recent draft picks. So we're going to be able to figure out if we want to extend some of these guys or just go for a short-term renewal. I'd certainly like to get an extension with Edgar Quero at some point because he's obviously a guy I'd like to build around for the future. I think 7 years, maybe taking out his first 2 years of free agency would make sense for around $67 million. He'd be making pretty similar money to that of Kyle Teal. He'd be under contract for 1 additional year compared to Kyle Teal, who we signed for 6 years and $60 million. Our roster is currently full. Well, I don't see how that affects our extension because Quero's already here. But we cut a few players, and I think we're going to trade some as well, including Owen White. And I'm going to send them to the Dodgers in exchange for a big leaguer. Owen White has pitched 16 games for us over the last couple of years, has not been good, but he's been good in the minors in the past. Trey Mago and Mario Camilletti will also be in the deal. And in exchange, it's time. It's time for Paul Sewald to pitch. Sewald's making close to $6 million. The Dodgers are going to try to get out of that deal. He's coming off arguably the best season of his career at 36 years old, making his first career All-Star team with Atlanta. He was part of the Ronald Acuna trade to the Dodgers and helped them win a World Series. Now, we could theoretically get more if we wanted to, but I don't want to get more. We need to take spots away from the roster while adding an all-star reliever in Paul Sewald. So now we can offer the extension for Edgar Quero. We're going to renew pretty much everybody else here except for the guys we cut and then a few additional players who I just don't really want to renew. It gets a little bit more challenging with arbitration. These are the guys with at least 3 years of MLB service, and these are the guys who are actually going to be making a little bit of money, unlike the players whose contracts we just renewed. Some of the most polarizing players on the roster are here, such as Acuna, Brian Ramos, you've got Ben Joyce. So we're going to offer arbitration to most of these guys because I would like to keep a lot of these players, even if their prices can be a little bit much. We will not offer arbitration for Danny Young, Andrew Monasterio, Nick Maton, Cam Boozer, or Kyle Nelson. So the 3 lefties in the bullpen are gone, and then Monasterio and Maton, both infield depth. I don't really want to pay them more than like $1 million because we have guys who are cheaper and honestly better. As for the 40-man, in terms of guys who could go in the Rule 5 draft, there are a few players who I really want to protect. Chase Maedroth had a great year in Double-A. He's a 71. I think he'd be good enough to get picked. Grant Taylor would probably be the number 1 pick. I'm not letting him go. And then Durangelo Sanger will be protected as well. Arson De La Fontaine, I will leave unprotected. It's a little bit risky, but he's only a 63, and he had a negative WAR in Double-A, so I don't really think anyone's going to pick him. Now for free agency. As I said earlier, I think it's a really solid class. On the top left, it says we've got around $50 million to spend. Granted, I don't think that accounts for arbitration, so that number is probably less. But there are some good players in here. Alex Bregman, who might have been the best player in baseball when healthy. You're going to have to wait for him for 3 months, but he's there. A lot of good catchers. Cal Raleigh, William Contreras, Adley Rutschman, and plenty of starting pitching. And as I've said, we're going to really focus on addressing the pitching staff. Starting pitching and relief pitching we need. We just need any kind of pitching possible to improve where we're at. We've got 3 good starters currently. We need at least 1 more, maybe 2. And then we've got to add to the bullpen. Sandy Alcantara, Justin Steele, Logan Gilbert, 3 of the best pitchers in baseball last year. You've got Shane McClanahan, Tyler McGill, Bailey Ober, Jordan Hicks, Tanner Houck. All of those guys were given the qualifying offer, though, and I think they're all out of our price range. I think the guys here in the 20s, 30s, 40s probably make a lot more sense for what we're looking for. I think Luis Castillo could be a good option, 33 years old, so not really a long-term thing, but a short 1 to 2 year deal. He's coming off a really good year with Seattle. Granted, the first 2 seasons of this series, he wasn't all that impressive, but last year, he was really solid. I think he'd be a good get. Nick Lodolo would probably be a longer-term deal, more like 3 or 4 years. His ERA was not great last year with the Reds, 4.23, but all of his other numbers were really solid, and he's been overall very productive since the start of the series. Nearly a 4 WAR, his FIP was really good, his component ERA, all of the advanced metrics are a lot better than the ERA in the 4.2s. So those are the guys we're going to have on the board here for Stage 1 and will be our initial targets. We're going to look to offer them here in Stage 2. Unfortunately, Luis Castillo does not want to come here at all. 12% motivation. It's not going to happen. So we're going to take him off the board and instead look at John Gray, 36 years old. He's been very solid with the Rangers and Phillies throughout the duration of the series. WAR above 3 in each of the last 2 years. Certainly a lower ceiling than Nick Lodolo, but probably a higher floor. For Lodolo, we're going to start with 3 years, and we're going to start by lowballing him a little bit. He wants around $21 million. I think we're going to start at around 20. Do I look like an elephant to you? Because I don't work for peanuts. Feel free to get back to me with a serious offer. So he clearly does not like that deal in the slightest. So I guess we're going to have to offer him a little more money. As Jason Foley signs a 2-year deal with the Cubs, Kyle Bradish and Otto Lopez extended by the Orioles and Marlins, both players avoiding arbitration. Let's go back to Nick Lodolo. We're going to wait on 3 years. I think maybe 20 and a half is a little more reasonable. And then John Gray, 1 year, $20 million, the baseline offer. That seems pretty fair. We're going to simulate another week. Whoa, there's a big signing. The first domino falls. William Contreras to the Detroit Tigers. One of the best players in baseball is now in our division for honestly pretty cheap. 6 years, around $150. That feels like a bargain for Contreras. The issue with him, though, is health. He's missed nearly 50% of his games over the last 3 years, but when he's been on the field, he's been incredible. He's played pretty much 170 games over the last 2 years, has roughly a 9 WAR in that span. So when he's on the field, he is dominant. And if he stays healthy, he's the best catcher probably in all of baseball. Another domino falls. Alex Bregman to the Dodgers. The rich get richer. The Dodgers will likely be without Bregman until the All-Star break as he comes back from his torn Achilles. But when healthy, he might have been the best player in the league last year. And if not him, it was either Shohei Ohtani or Mookie Betts, both of whom are now his teammates. That's terrifying. I get he's got the Achilles, but I'm really surprised Bregman did not get at least $100 million. Are you window shopping or serious about buying? Don't discount how that offer has affected my motivation. Why does Nick Lodolo hate us? I barely lowballed him. This offer's not quite what I'm looking for, but we're not too far apart. See, John Means is polite. He's respectful. He's 36. He's been a free agent before. He knows not to burn bridges. We have a rival opportunity. The Twins want to bring back Bailey Ober after a year in Atlanta. He's just way too inconsistent for my liking, and he's probably out of our price range as well. Let's go back to Nick Lodolo. He wants $21 a year. We'll give him $21 a year for 3 years. John Gray, meanwhile, I'll up the price a little bit to $20.4. I also want to start looking at position players, and Lars Nootbaar is a guy I've had my eye on since the beginning of last year. I thought about trading for him. It never happened. He had a really good year, nearly a 3 WAR with St. Louis and Baltimore, won a Gold Glove. I think he'd be a great fit for us in the outfield. Contract decision for Lodolo. Are you window shopping? No, I'm not. I gave you what you wanted, $21 a year. Sock it to me. Goddamn, you're a freak. I'm signing with the White Sox. So we do sign John Gray, 1 year, $20.4. He's been one of the most consistent starting pitchers in baseball over the last 3 years. This is exactly what I was looking to add in the rotation. The Phillies bring in Adley Rutschman, 2 years, $50 million. These seem like awfully small deals. This is a great contract for the Phillies, and for Adley, I guess the market wasn't really what he wanted, so he will retest it in 2 years where he hopes to make more money. But as I've been saying, Baltimore's championship window seems to be shutting quickly, and with Adley Rutschman gone, that's arguably their second or third most important player after Gunnar Henderson, and I'd probably put Jackson Holliday ahead of them at this point. Still, a massive loss for Baltimore. Big get for one of the best teams in the National League, who need a catcher very badly. So with John Gray now here, that certainly takes up a lot of money. I don't think I'm interested in Tyler O'Neill. He only hit like 220 last year. He's just so inconsistent on a year-by-year basis. But with the addition of John Gray, I don't really think there's a need for Nick Lodolo anymore. Maybe you shouldn't have been so disrespectful, buddy. So we're going to take him off the list. We've got Lars Nootbaar here. We've got room for some more players, and I think this is where we start to look at the bullpen. Keegan Akin's been great through this series. He was very good in the first 2 seasons with the Orioles, really strong last year with the Phillies. We don't have any lefties in the bullpen because Danny Young, Cam Boozer, and Kyle Nelson, we let all 3 of them go. We did not offer any of them arbitration. We've got to add a lefty to the group, and I think Keegan Akin is the best in this free agent class. All non-tendered players outside of Edgar Caro will become free agents as the Mets steal away Bryson Stott from the division rival Phillies. The Phillies, though, ended up signing Luis Garcia, who the Mets had playing second base, so they pretty much just swapped. Meanwhile, Logan Gilbert is now in our division. 7 years, $230 with the Twins. A massive get for Minnesota. That's a legit ace that they're adding. He was one of probably the 5 best pitchers in baseball last year. It's a now or never for Keegan Akin. If only we put him on the board a week earlier. Since his motivation is super low, I feel like we have to offer him the max. That's the only way we would possibly get him. And to not really much of a surprise, he's not signing with us. 1 year, $9.5 with the Reds. No hard feelings, but their offer was too good to pass up. I mean, we gave you more money, but okay. Now or never for Lars Nootbaar. We're going to kind of do the same thing. I think 2 years, probably around $15 million. He does sign in the AL Central, but not with us. He is headed to the Cleveland Guardians. He ended up getting a 3rd year from them for around $12.5. So a solid addition for Cleveland, adding to the outfield. Cal Raleigh, 6 years, $100 million to the Marlins, who also signed Brandon Marsh, 6 years for $100 million as well. Miami's serious now that they've got a really good ball club with 2 $100 million hitters. Another day, another opportunity to offer free agents. And with Keegan Aiken and Lars Nootbaar heading elsewhere, our board is completely open, just days away from the Rule 5 draft, the MLB Draft Lottery, and the MLB Winter Meetings. Ryan McMahon has been getting interest from the Tigers. 4.6 WAR. He was really good last year. I think he's a little bit on the older side and a little inconsistent year to year, but I really thought about it because in terms of his skill set, he would be a pretty good fit for us. With Keegan Aiken off the board, we've got to pivot in the bullpen. I think maybe taking a shot on Felix Bautista is an interesting idea. We've had him before in the Giants series. It was only for, 3 months? But he was on our World Series team. He was a really fun player to use. He's been really inconsistent with Baltimore, but I think for a one-year deal, it's worth a shot. And then Brock Burke, this could be our lefty. One of the few bright spots for the Angels over the last couple of years. I think he'd be a good get for 1 year, around $5 million. Let's simulate up to the winter meetings. A big opportunity for free agents to sign. But the very first event of the winter meeting is the draft lottery. And remember, we get to go through the draft lottery twice. And whichever result is the better one is the one we'll pick. We had the opposite of this in year number 1. Now, it didn't really matter because our first spin, we went from the worst team to the 7th pick, which was literally the worst case scenario. So it didn't even matter what happened the second time. But now, we'll get whatever is the better of the two. We fall to 11th the first time around. The Cardinals and the Pirates jump up to 1 and 2. You know what's depressing about this? If we had won one more game, if we were 75 and 87, we would have won the draft lottery because the Cardinals were one spot ahead of us. That sucks. Now for the second spin. I have a hard time thinking we're going to drop to 11 again, so chances are this is the one that we're most likely going to go with. Give us some luck. We could use another top pick. And sure enough, we stay at number 9. The team at 8, the A's, jump up. Toronto, who just landed a generational prospect, gets the number 1 pick. And then Minnesota and Kansas City in our division end up at 2 and 3. I feel like both of these spins sucked. I don't even know if the second one's better because our division mates have 2 top 3 picks. We're going to stick with that one because we're picking 9th, but damn, that did not work out. We're going to offer 1-year deals now for Bautista and Burke, a little bit more than their original asking prices. That also brings us to the Rule 5 draft. We've gotten some good players here. Cody Hosey, back in year 1. He was a second-round Rule 5 pick, and now he looks like a long-term starter for us. There's nobody on the board I really want, though, so we're going to skip our pick. I'm not going to really force myself to use one, unlike last year when we picked Declan Cronin, who barely stuck on the roster for more than a month. The player pool was pretty weak, and there only ended up being one player selected going to Toronto, and he did not come from our team, so we will retain all of our minor leaguers. From there, we get through the dog days of the offseason. From January into February, we're going to see where more free agents land. We're going to see if we're able to get either one of these relievers between Felix Bautista or Brock Burke. We'll first hear from Bautista. You've caught my attention, but you've not convinced me to sign yet. Brock Burke is ready to sign. I'm ready to take my talents to the south side. 1 year, 5.62. That's a good get. He'll be our best lefty by far. An agent is calling us about a familiar face if you've been around the channel. Edward Cabrera. There's a reason why his agent has to call. It's because no one wants him. Did not pitch last year. ERA of 10 the year prior. It's unfortunate that he stinks because he's the best pitcher I have ever had in a franchise series on the channel. In MLB The Show 23 in the Marlins series, he won 4 Cy Youngs in a row. I would love to try the Edward Cabrera reclamation project, but I think he is beyond cooked. His agent, I give her credit for trying, but I don't think anyone's going to sign him, especially not for $5.5 million. That is completely outrageous. Maybe if it was $5,500, I would consider, but millions? No, I don't think I'm going to do that. We still have Felix Bautista here on the board. We could look to offer and sign him now. I actually think I'm going to kind of wait it out. With the addition of Brock Burke, our bullpen's pretty deep. So I think we're going to wait and see with Felix Bautista, and we're going to simulate over the next month or so. When Edward Cabrera first became Batman in the Marlins series, Sandy Alcantara was his Robin. 4 years, 170 for the highest-rated player in the free agency class, going to the Texas Rangers. Huge loss for the Rays. He's been so good for them over the last 2.5 years since they acquired him. The best team in the AL adds maybe the best pitcher in the AL. Luke Weaver's agent, actually the same agent as Edward Cabrera, gives us a call. At least his ERA wasn't a 10 the last time he pitched, but I think I'm good. The Rays lose Sandy, but they do bring back Shane McClanahan. 7 years, $200+ million. He's not as good as Sandy, but he can certainly be the ace of their staff. While Justin Steele will be the new ace for the Yankees. 3 years, $111. Big get for New York. Arguably the best pitcher in the entire league. Led all players in pitching WAR at 5.3. He is headed to the Bronx. Felix Bautista is at 91% motivation. That is the max. The thing is, I just don't really think we really need him. I think the bullpen is pretty complete. We don't have that much available money anyway. We still have to wait for the arbitration, and we still have to trade for an established major leaguer, giving up one of our top 5 prospects. Bailey Ober, back on the Twins. They trade him away to Atlanta. Doesn't really work out there. And he returns to Minnesota. Big brain. 3 years, $83 million. He'll join forces with Logan Gilbert on the Twins. The arbitration panel mostly sided with us, with the exception of Emmanuel Rivera and Luis Angel Acuna. I'm a little surprised when it comes to Acuna because, I don't think a .5 WART player should be making $4.5 million. But the panel obviously sees him pretty highly, but everybody else, for the most part, the panel ended up siding with us. So now in terms of our money, we still have enough flexibility to give Edgar Caro the extension and then possibly, or not possibly, we have to add another big leaguer. We do have $145 million tied in. That's not low, especially for the White Sox. That might be their highest payroll ever. Hell, it might be doubled their second highest payroll, for all I know. I think our team's in a pretty good spot, but I think we have one clear need. We need to get another outfielder. Lou Bob is great, but Douglas Cato, he's a wild card with the injuries. Braden Montgomery is an unproven player. And otherwise, there's not a whole lot else in the outfield. I don't think Corey Julks can be a full-time starter. So I think we've got to look at getting an outfielder. I think Barney Wagner, Ezra Valenzuela, and Martin Bird are off the table. I'm not interested in trading either one of them. It would probably have to be either Sal Casey or Rod White. Both of whom are very similar. They're both 20 years old, right around 60 overall, but there's one big difference between the two of them. Casey has 86 stamina. Rod White has 68. Stamina normally does not go up, but it is a very important stat. So this leads me to believe that even though Rod White's potential rating is higher, he's more likely to be capped out as a starter because of his stamina. I think he might be best suited in the long term as a reliever. Regardless, I would rather trade him away, and he has more value to begin with across the league. In terms of some candidates, Colton Cowser would certainly be a big one. He's going to miss part of the start of this year with an injury, but he's a really good player who I think would fit our roster perfectly. The Orioles are in the red, money-wise, but they still have hope for a title. They are not interested in trading him, even though he will be out to start the year. Even if we had both Kyle Teal and Ezra Valenzuela, they would say no, for reference. James Wood would be likely a hefty price, but I think he would be worth it. He has 3 years left on his deal. He's just entering arbitration. The Nationals, I don't think, are going to be good in 3 years. So it might make more sense for them to maximize his value now than wait 2 years. He's gotten better and better each season, but since he's so good, they don't want to trade him, which I guess is understandable. What about Willie Abreu in Kansas City? Silver Slugger last year, Gold Glove the year before, 2 years of team control, and a Royals team that's just kind of stuck. They don't seem all that interested, though. I think Byron Buxton could really work. Minnesota might be entering a rebuild. Buxton's done a better job of staying healthy in the past. In the 96 games he played last year, he was awesome, with a WAR above 4. The problem, other than the fact that he's 34 years old and would not be a long-term piece, is that him and Luis Robert are the exact same player. Excellent raw athleticism in terms of contact, power, defense, and speed, but neither of them have great plate skills. They're literally the same person. What about Brenton Doyle in Colorado? He's got 2 years left. I don't think the Rockies are looking to pay him. The Rockies are probably not going to be that good anytime soon. He's not a very good offensive player, but he's one of the most impactful defensive players in baseball because he's got an elite glove in center field, lightning fast, great base runner, 3.3 WAR without being a net positive offensively. What about Dylan Cruz? with the Nationals. He's really struggled to put it all together, but last year he finally showed some flashes. Career high in homers in only 93 games. His best average, his best OPS, 1.6 WAR. In the other 3 seasons, though, only .1. So, not a guy who's been good throughout his career, but someone who's clearly on the up. And only 26 years old, I don't think he would be the worst idea. And the Nationals, they seem like they'd be kind of interested in potentially making something happen here. So we were able to come up with a deal. We'll be sending Rod White, the second-ranked prospect in our system, and Robert Passan to the Nationals. I like Passan. I thought he was really good in the minors early in this series, but struggled last year. And we're crowded in the infield with Chase Maedroff, Leo Balcazar, and Ryan Burroughs, all of whom I think are better. And that doesn't even account for guys like Jacob Gonzalez and Barney Wagner, who are obviously better than him. We're going to get Creed Willems, who's a catcher. I feel like we need more catching depth, along with, obviously, Dylan Cruz, who we will have under contract for the next 3 years. It's a gamble. We're trading one of the best prospects in the league for a guy who's had half a season of production, but this is the former number 2 pick, a guy who was touted as one of the best prospects of the last decade, and he finally showed those flashes last year with the Washington Nationals. I think him playing right field with his defense, speed, and improving offense could really work for us, and I'm excited to see what he'll be able to provide us going forward. I accidentally skipped through the free agency recap portion of the offseason, so we're going to go team by team, going through some of the notable signings, specifically the ones we have not already talked about. The Guardians were big spenders, adding Tyler O'Neill and Lars Nootbaar to the outfield, Hunter Harvey to the bullpen, and they extended Jeremy Pena. The Tigers added, in my opinion, the best player in the class with William Contreras. They added Trevor McGill to the bullpen and Christian Javier, a player I looked at briefly, to the rotation. Teoscar Hernandez to the Royals. The Twins pitching looks a lot better with Clay Holmes, Bailey Ober, who's back, and Logan Gilbert as the new ace. The Astros want to be competitive. They brought in Stephen Kwan, Griffin Canning, and German Marquez, the former Chicago White Sox. The Mariners ended up with Ryan McMahon. The Rangers obviously added Sandy Alcantara. He's probably the best pitcher. Him or Justin Steele. Camilo Duvall signs with the Atlanta Braves. It looks like they want to stay competitive as well. They also added Dennis Santana and Brendan Donovan. It hurts my heart seeing both Donovan and Camilo Duvall in Atlanta because they were 2 of my favorite players in the Giants series last year, and the Braves were literally our number 1 rival, even more than the Dodgers. The Marlins spent adding Cal Raleigh and Brandon Marsh while extending Otto Lopez. The Mets and Phillies trade second baseman Bryson Stott to New York. Luis Garcia, a little worse, but a little cheaper, goes to the Philadelphia Phillies. The Cubs lose out on Justin Steele, but they extended Pete Alonso. They added Jason Foley to the bullpen. They signed Jordan Hicks to be the new ace. He's not Justin Steele, but he's not a bad backup option. They also added Luis Castillo as well. Keegan Aiken goes to the Reds. They also brought back Alexis Diaz, who missed most of last year with an injury. Devin Williams returns to the Brew Crew after 3 years with the Yankees. There were some weird reunions as Joe Ryan also ends up in Milwaukee. I didn't mention it earlier, but Mackenzie Gore was another one. He's back with the Nationals. Freddie Freeman signs a 1-year deal with the Pirates, joining Felix Bautista in the Berg. Okay, this one's kind of funny. So Nick Lodolo goes to the Rockies for way less money than he was asking for earlier. What did I say about burning bridges? He got pissed when I offered him 3 years for $60 million. Not only did he sign for $10 million less, but even worse than that, he has to play for the Rockies. This is why you don't burn bridges, kids. We could have maybe worked something out if you weren't such a, a disrespectful child. Alex Bregman to the Dodgers. How can Vladimir Guerrero be their 5th best offensive player when he was, better than the 5th best hitter in the league last year? That's scary. Tanner Houck, the new ace of the San Diego Padres. I'm showing the Orioles here not because they added someone, but more so because they didn't. Adley Rutschman is gone. They replaced him with Joey Bart, who was really good in a limited amount of at-bats. But I feel like their window is shutting fast. If they struggle this year, they could get a king's ransom for Gunnar Henderson, who might be the most sought-after free agent ever. 3-time MVP already. He'll be 27 when he hits the open market. This has to be even more alluring than Juan Soto, right? Because he's a positive defender while being an elite offensive engine. So he literally might make $1 billion. Would not shock me if the Dodgers say, screw it, Here's a blank check. The Red Sox got worse as well. They lost a lot of pitching. Logan Gilbert's gone. Tanner Houck is gone. Reynaldo Lopez is gone. They had Tyler McGill, Jacob deGrom, and Clark Schmidt, so they recovered slightly while bringing in Taylor Ward as well, but I feel like their team is worse. As is Baltimore, as is Tampa Bay, losing Sandy Alcantara. So because of that, even though the Yankees finished in 4th place last year, I think with the addition of Justin Steele, they have the best roster in the division, and they should be the front runners. Jose Alvarado also signs with the Yankees, a big get, stealing him from a rival. He was really good with the Orioles last year. The Rays lose Sandy Alcantara, who led the AL in pitching war, but they bring back McClanahan. They add Will Vest to the bullpen. Their rotation is still really good 1-4. They don't have a good 5, but 1-4, very solid. And then Toronto, they make a big addition through the draft with Antron Sonnenberg. And then they add to the bullpen with Raisel Iglesias, Johan Duran. They signed Dean Kremer to the rotation. Toronto's probably not going to be that good, but they shouldn't lose 99 games again. They should be quite a bit better than they were a year ago. And that brings us back to us. A few housekeeping things before we wrap up. Kyle Teal can play the outfield. Edgar Caro does not have a secondary position. And with these guys switching off at catcher, we need Caro to be able to play another position other than DH. First base is not a natural fit because he's only 5'10", but I don't really see where else we would put him. Maybe we can train him to play third base or something, but for now, we'll start with first base. He'll probably catch more days than he doesn't, but when he's not catching or DHing, we can slide him over at first base as well. I think we're going to teach Cody Hosey how to learn first as well. Jairo Iriarte, we will transition him into a reliever. There's still an ounce of hope that he can be a starter, but we have to be realistic here. It hasn't worked, and he's 26. It's not like he's 22. So I moved his position to a reliever. He's only a 66. We're going to take off some stamina because it does not need to be 73. And we're going to replace the 20 points of stamina by upgrading his 5 per 9s, including clutch, by 4 each. Now, he's only a 69. Nice. I'm not entirely sure how I can be fair about this because I feel like he should be a 75, but maybe that would make him OP. Maybe I improve his velocity and his break, make him throw a little harder, make his stuff a little nastier. It's the opposite of what we did last year with Fernando Molina in the Giants series. We drafted him as a reliever, but eventually turned him into a starter, where he ended up being quite good. I think Jairo Iriarte could be a great reliever. I still think he could be a good starter, but I think he could be a great reliever. Even though his ERA was in the mid-6s last year, he had some good games. It's just that when he went past like the 5th inning, he fell apart. So that shows that he can be a good pitcher, but not a guy who throws more than 80 pitches. Overall, though, I like where this team's at. I like where the depth chart is. We're only the 23rd ranked team in the league, but I think we can be a lot better than that. We are top 10 in 3 of the 5 team categories. 2nd in speed, 10th in power, 8th in defense. Now, the most important categories are contact and pitching, and those are still lower. But I think we improved the pitching a lot. John Gray joins the rotation. We've got 4 proven good starters. And we're going to have to figure out who number 5 is between some of the young guys like Jagger Haynes, Alexis Cosmo, Grant Taylor, Wilkeman Gonzalez, maybe Hayden Wisniewski. The bullpen got better as well with the addition of Ezra Valenzuela through the draft. We signed Brock Burke in free agency. And then the contact was already a plus last year. All of our position players from last year are back, every single one of them. And we add Dylan Cruz, who isn't a great contact hitter, but I think they're in the 60s. It's not horrible. So I think that's where we're going to wrap up the episode. Next time around, we will start with trades around the league, along with international free agents. For those of you who would like to make an international player for the series, make sure to go join the Discord server. The link to that is in the description. Along with that, we will go through spring training and opening day in the next episode as we take our first look at the new look White Sox featuring Dylan Cruz, John Gray, and others. What do you guys think of the offseason? Do you think our moves were good enough? And is this team potentially ready to contend for a playoff spot? Let me know in the comments. Make sure to leave a like. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out.